Did Gladiator 2 get women's fashion correct? Did women wear underwear in ancient Rome? And what exactly was lizard intestine used for? Those are the questions you'll find the answer for in this video. So the costumers of Gladiator 2 purposefully went for a 19th century inspired costume for most of the women in Gladiator 2. But what did ancient Roman women actually wear? So a well-to-do woman would often wear 3 layers. They'd have the underlayer called the tunica, a stola, and then that would basically be like a dress, and it was usually pinned at the shoulders. And then finally a palla, which was basically like a shawl. And this was a lot of fabric. Like the tunica alone would be 5 feet by 6 feet. And if you were wealthy, you wanted to show off that edge that comes off of the loom to show that you bought the whole thing. And so women who were wealthy would wear very long garments, partly because of modesty, but partly to show off how wealthy they were. People who were working, they had much shorter tunics, partly because they often used fabric that was left over from wealthy people. And now a lot of this sculpture that shows us what women wore shows them as wearing all white. But historically, they didn't. Roman women who were wealthy loved color because, again, it showed how wealthy they were. Now, there were sumptuary laws that prevented people from wearing certain colors. Purple was the most restricted color. You had to be the emperor or from the imperial family to be able to wear it, partly because purple was hard to get. It was made from murex shells, and 10,000 shells were needed to make 1 toga. Saffron was one of the other expensive dyes. It made this beautiful yellow, but of course, it also required a lot of crocuses. Wearing all white was reserved for members of the Senate, children, priests, and vestals. The most affordable fabrics were linens, but linens didn't take a dye super well. Cotton was easier to dye, but more expensive, usually imported from Egypt. And then wool was wonderful, but because it was made of animal products, it was only for certain people, upper class people. And it was wonderful because it dyed really well, and it kept its shape, so it was long lasting. So if you ever see anybody with a purple stripe or brightly colored clothes, you know they're upper class. While the Roman styles of clothing didn't change all that much over the centuries of imperial Rome, the things that really changed and were very time-consuming were hairstyles and makeup. Wealthy Roman women had a lot of domestic labor. So they had lots of people to help them dress, lots of people to help them with their children, and they also had women to help them with their hair and makeup. And you can often tell the status of a woman by her hairstyle. If she's wearing a low bun or not having any hair piled on top of her head, that means that she is somebody who, let's say, is a servant or is a performer. If she's got curls galore, assume she's wealthy, because that required people to help set her hair and keep it pinned in place. And it's usually hairstyles that help scholars date artworks because their hairstyles did change pretty commonly. So before we get to the makeup, let's talk about what they wore under all of those garments. So they basically wore kind of a bikini and a bandeau. Now, there's one that has survived in leather, and there's this depiction of a suite in leather. And the leather version might have been for exercising, as you see in this depiction, or it could have been for performing. For every day, they would have probably worn a basically bandeau or a binder. Roman women did not like to have excessive or large breasts, and so they basically wore them bound so that their garments looked best. The idea was that the ideal female beauty was similar to the physique of a young boy. That said, women were the ones who largely wore makeup. They wore all sorts of things like armbands and rings and earrings. Here we have a Roman woman wearing multiple necklaces, earrings, and a diadem. But no ancient Roman woman would do anything without their makeup. And here we have an ancient Roman woman with 4 maids helping her get ready. She's looking in a mirror that's being held for her. Ancient Roman women usually whitened their face with some combination of animal fat and lead white. They often used wine to add a little tint to their cheeks and lips. They used eyeliner or kohl, often using the mineral antimony. They would also use minerals to darken their eyebrows so that they looked really pronounced, but they did not like unibrows. That's some sort of myth that's come out on the internet. And then finally, if they really wanted their skin to glow, sometimes they would use the intestines of a lizard. Pliny said it was like a crocodile, but we don't know exactly what that is. What fascinates me about the makeup routine is it's sort of like that natural look that takes a lot of time. So as you can see, ancient Roman women were slightly like us and somewhat different. For more about Gladiator 2 and the real history behind it, watch my other videos.